Hello, everyone, and welcome to Job Seekers Get Tips and Advice from an Employer. Today we have Vera Amaral from WHEDco, who is an HR resource director, and we're going to speak about job tips. Hi,
Hey guys,
Vera.
how are you?
Joining
It's good to see you.
you too. So we'll get started. So I'm gonna just start with introducing myself and Vera, and then we'll get right into questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll get to it. So I'm Lisa Marie Pierre. I am a program manager for economic development at Bronx Community College. I also am a member of JARC, the Jerome Avenue Revitalization Collaborative. I'm a member of the steering committee, and additionally, I'm a part of the strategy work group. And so, Vera, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm talking about myself, but I know needs to be done. My name is Vera. I'm the HR director and assistant general counsel at WHEDco. For those of you that may not be familiar with WHEDco, we're a community development organization based in the South Bronx. We have a very simple mission, which is that we believe that everyone is entitled to live in a healthy and vibrant neighborhood, and that obviously includes access to affordable housing, high quality early childhood education, after school programs, wraparound services like benefits counseling, access to legal assistance, food pantry, small business development, and of course, access to the arts. So, because WHEDco's work is, the breadth of our work is so broad, we actually have a number of different jobs and different positions. So if you actually check out our website today, if you go into our careers page, you'll see that we're looking for a farm manager, a social worker, a teacher. So please consider us when you're thinking about, future employers.
We're really excited to have you, and of course, WHEDco. WHEDco has been an instrumental partner in the Jerome Avenue Revitalization Collaborative, which we call fondly JARC. And so JARC formed as a response to the rezoning that happened in the Jerome Avenue corridor. And our goals are to represent the residents, employers, employees and workers and businesses that are in the corridor that would be impacted by the rezoning. And so some activities that we do are things like this, just initiatives and programs where we really want the community to just gain resources from us. So without that being said, we'll get started. And so my first question for you, Vera, is where can job seekers find opportunities?
Yeah. So it's we could honestly spend a whole half an hour just talking about the different job sites because there are so many out there. There's some very large general sites that you can find all sorts of positions, all sorts of roles. There are very specific job sites that may be, tailored for just social workers or nursing or people in the legal industry. I think I'm just going to highlight a few that I've used as an applicant, and that I've used to post in on the employer side. So in terms of just general job sites that are very large and folks maybe already be familiar with, Indeed, Monster, these are ginormous job sites that are not specific to any industry. You'll find a wide variety of different jobs, different roles, different postings, from experience to, entry level to everything in the middle. LinkedIn is actually, I think, a really good source for jobs. It is a good professional network, so that I think is just good to have anyway. It's a good way to do research on employers, which we might talk about later. But they do have a job section. LinkedIn, it tends to be more professional roles, but if you're interested in nonprofit, for example, you may want to check out Idealist. Idealist also has positions with government agencies. New York nonprofit jobs is also a good job bank if you are interested in working for a nonprofit. If perhaps you are interested in startups, AngelList is a good resource for you. If you're interested in working for a college and university, you can try higher ed jobs. So there's just so many different different job sites. You could also check out your career services department if you're a student or maybe if you're a recent grad. I know that WHEDco, we do post at local colleges, so that may be a good resource. I learned recently from a colleague of ours at WHEDco that the New York Public Library actually has a very excellent virtual career services option, and they include career coaching, one-on-one job support, and then, you know, just looking around your neighborhood. What are the jobs there? What are the organizations or groups that you might be interested in? You know, check out their job boards, check out their career pages. You know, maybe it's a small mom and pop shop where they may not have, you know, a website, they may not have a career page. You know, I think it's okay just to pop in or call them, or if they have an email address, reach out to them. And then I think the last resource, which I myself am terrible at, is using your network, right? Like reaching out to your friends, to your neighbors, you know, maybe to your professors, just anyone that you know, because I think that employee referral is really important. And I think that carries a lot of value when you're trying to differentiate yourself among, you know, hundreds of applicants.
Yeah. You know, that's something that I really like doing is thinking about companies that I like and I admire, and then every now and then going on their website and seeing how they posted something. And something that's been important to me, I know when people are working in social impact or nonprofits, they value a mission-driven company. And so some websites that I've used are People First Jobs. That's for startups who have a more mission-focused angle. And then B Works, they focus on companies that put people and the planet first. And Philanthropy News Digest is also another one that is focused on foundations and nonprofits. And lastly, there's one called 80,000 Hours, and that's also one geared towards people who are into altruism. So there's so many, like you're right, there's so many different avenues you can go. You could go specific into your industry, the type of you know, companies you want to work for, and then also just more general. And so I really enjoy that perspective. So, you know, when you find the actual opportunity, you found the job posting and you're ready, like, you know, you think this is the right job for you. What do you do? What's the next steps?
So I would say that, you know, you probably want to read the job description over 2 times, 3 times, because I think like the first time you're just sort of reading it and you're seeing is, you know, is this something that I'm interested in? Does it pique my interest? So when you're going through it again, the second time and the third time, you know, you want to go through the job description, the job posting very carefully, and even go like, it's okay. You can be a total nerd. Go with the highlighter or go with, you know, a pen and highlight things and take notes, because that job description is really going to be your blueprint for when you create your resume and you create, you know, your cover letter if the employer is asking for a cover letter. You know, I think it's really important that you're looking at just really basic things like, who is the employer? Is this a place that, you know, I'm going to want to work at? You know, what do I know about them? Do they have the culture that I'm looking for? What is the role? Is it matching my skills? Is it how does that fit within my overall goal of where I want to be, you know, 5-10 years? Is it part-time? Is it full-time? Sometimes the job posting may have information about work hours or benefits or salaries. So all this is just, you know, really important to consider when you're applying for the job, because you don't want to waste your time on a resume and a cover letter where at the end of the day you're like, you know what, this is actually not, I'm not interested in it. I don't want to work for this employer. This is a part-time job. I was looking for a full-time job, right? And probably the most important thing that you're going to look at, you know, you're going to look at your preferred and your required qualifications, right? So those are really key. You want to make sure that you are falling into that you have the skill set that the folks are looking for, right? And then of course, pay attention to what it is that they want you to submit. Is it just a resume? Is it a cover letter? Is it a transcript? Do they want letter of references right off the start? You want to make sure that whatever they're asking, you are complying, and you are complying also in the format, right? So sometimes they'll say, you know, we want it in Word format, or we want it in a PDF format. So you want to do everything that you can, follow their instructions to the T, because you want to make sure that your information is getting to that hiring manager, it's getting to that recruiter. You don't want to get it kicked out right from the get-go where it's not even going in front of a human.
Yeah, so when you're applying, when you see these job opportunities, what is your recommendation in terms of keeping track? Should people keep a spreadsheet? Should you download the job description? I've in the past have applied for jobs and I didn't save the description. I go back and it's gone. So what are some tips you have for people when they actually find it?
Yeah, I definitely have been in that position too, where you apply for something and then maybe it's like 3, 4 months later because you don't know how long this process takes, and then you're like, oh shoot, like what job was this? Like what did I say in my cover letter? What did I say in my resume? So yeah, I would highly recommend, either printing it out if that works for you, or if you'd rather just save an electronic copy, I would just save it on your desktop, have a folder, and have the cover letter you use, the resume, have the job description, and either use a spreadsheet so that you can go back to them, or just really carefully label your documents so that right? So when WHEDco calls and it's like, hey, Lisa Marie, this is Vera from WHEDco, I'm calling about the social worker position, like you can just pull that up right away, right? So I once called someone for an interview, and the first question they asked you was like, wait, what position is this for? You totally understand, right? Because we've all been in there when you're like applying for a job and you're just applying. But as an employer, you never want to hear that, right? Like, you never want to hear that someone really doesn't care enough about the position to like remember you. So yeah, please, whatever works best for you. Like for me, what worked best for me was just saving the documents on my computer, on my desktop, so that I could just quickly go in and search. I save a file like WHEDco social worker. And then I would know, okay, well, WHEDco social worker, here's the job description, WHEDco social worker, here was the resume I used, WHEDco social worker, here's the cover letter. And it's all there for you. You can print it out, and it just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone who's joining in. I'm here with Vera Amaral from WHEDco, and we're going over job tips and from the perspective of someone in human resources that's actually looking at the resume and the cover letter and doing the hiring. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. This is a chance to get some insight from someone who actually is looking at resumes and cover letters. So Vera, I had a question, just a follow-up on when you said looking at the job description and reading through, how important is it that you match your experiences or the keywords that are in the job description with what's on actually your cover letter or resume?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just critical, right? Because and that's why I'm saying, like, it's okay to be like a little bit of a nerd and go and highlight keywords that sort of match with your experience in the job description. Because as an employer, whether it's a hiring manager or HR, if I have a stack of 100 resumes, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the job description, right? So I'm going to go to WHEDco's job description for, for example, for the education specialist. And I'm going to say, okay, what are the requirements of the position? What's required? What's preferred? And by the time I'm getting to my resumes and I'm putting in the yes, no, maybe pile, I'm spending like 6 seconds on each resume, maybe, right, for that first cut. So what I'm really looking for is specific keywords, right? Have you included those in your cover letter? Because I am going through them so quickly, and employers are going them through so quickly. And in fact, a lot of employers who are using these applicant tracking systems, it's an algorithm. So the algorithm is running, it's looking for keywords in your documents, in your cover letter, in your resume. And if you don't have those keywords, you're not even getting to human, right? You out from the get-go. So it is so critical when I'm saying, like, using that job description like your blueprint. It is all there, right? So, and I'm not saying like you should make stuff up, obviously, like you want to be honest, but to the extent that you're looking at the job description and you're like, oh yeah, I have that experience. You're going to want to include that in your resume and in your cover letter, so that when someone like me is quickly looking through the pile of resumes and spending the six seconds on your resume, I know, aha, Lisa Marie, yes, these are the keywords I'm looking for. I'm going to put her in the yes pile. She's going to get a closer look.
Mm-hmm. So we have a question from Real Melly. She wants to know, when is it too late to apply? How quickly do you have to apply after it has been posted to ensure your application will actually get reviewed?
That's a good question, and I think every employer is different. Usually, if a position has been up, if you notice that a posting has been up for a couple months, it could be stale. I think though, if you're looking at the job posting and you feel like you're a good match, I would say to still apply. If the job posting is still up, if you're still able to submit your resume, your cover letter, or whatever they're asking for, I would still do it, because it could just be that it's a position that's hard to fill. Like, we definitely have postings that are up for several months just because we're looking for something very specific. And a lot of our, actually a lot of our bilingual roles are very difficult to fill. So you might see like, hey, this WHEDco posting has been up for a few months. So I would still encourage you. I mean, worst case is you don't hear from them, right? But best case scenario, like maybe you are the one person that they're looking for and you have the qualifications that they need. You can also look at the posting and see sometimes it'll say like, applicant closing date, or, applications must be received by whatever date. But usually, especially if you see it up on their website, if you're able to even log into like an applicant tracking system and apply, and you see that it's still active, I would say go ahead, apply. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important to think about. Is just like, just put in the application, because you never know. Some companies, I know, they'll keep things on file, right? Have you ever done that? Kept applications on file?
We don't, just because we don't, we're old school in that, we don't have a fancy applicant tracking system. We don't allow people to sort of apply through, a system like, you're submitting resumes to us through email or whatever the case may be. So it becomes difficult to kind of manage that. But yeah, like always apply. Like I know that I've never been in that experience, but I know that I've had friends that like applied for X job that was posted, and by the time that the company got their resume and their cover letter, well, that position was filled. But you know what? Next month, we're going to post for this job. Would you be interested? And so that does happen. And you might as well get a jump on it if you're able to get in and be one of the first people that they consider.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit. So we've talked about finding opportunities, what happens when you are ready. So how important is it to have a resume or cover letter? And what should you be doing with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so critical, and I know it can be really time consuming and annoying to have to work on a resume and a cover letter. And I think the advice I would give is, have a standard cover letter, have a standard resume, and then tweak it for the specific job posting that you are applying for. Because, that is your one chance, right? Like, that is your one chance to make an impression on the hiring manager or the recruiter or the HR department. So you want to make sure that that actually reflects you and really sells you, right? So when you're preparing your cover letter and you're preparing your resume, we already talked about keywords, right? You're going to want to comb through the job posting, look for the keywords, making sure that you're including in it. And it's okay to tweak your resume depending on the job posting, right? So when you prepare your resume, you're not going to list every single thing that you do at a job, right? Because then it'd be like 10 pages, and no one wants a 10-page resume, right? Unless you're like a professor or something. So you're going to want to highlight like the main things that you did. So maybe there is something that you kind of want to move to the top, because that's what the job posting says, right? It's a activity or a skill that you have that you're doing in your current role. So it's okay to tweak it. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your cover letter, your resume, they are, your contact information is correct and up to date. That if you're including an email address, that you please check your emails, because that is the preferred method of contact for a lot of employers. I will say for email addresses, just be careful what email address you're using. Like I've seen some pretty good ones, and I'm not someone who is easily offended, but I've definitely seen emails that someone could be offended by, and you don't want that to be the reason that you're not getting the interview, right? So maybe just do a Gmail account, a Gmail address just for your job search, and then just try to make sure that you're checking it often. And that's only if you maybe have an email address that you're using that someone could maybe get a little offended by, right? But otherwise, your resume, cover letter, they're neat, they're easy to read, they're concise. You want to proofread, 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 right? So no typos, no grammatical errors. And it's always best, I think, because like for myself too, like, you know, when you're working on a document, you're always going to miss a typo because you're so focused on it and you're reading it. And like, that's just how your brain works. Like your brain knows what that word is supposed to be, right? That it's supposed to be a the instead of a that.
Yeah.
And so if you can, have someone else just take a look at it and just, you know, to catch maybe any typos. If you don't have that, if you don't have anyone who you maybe can give your resume or cover letter to look over to, put it down for a few hours and then go back to it and just do the one more, the read over. And of course, be honest, right? Be honest in terms of what your experience is, because it's gonna come up either during the interview or at some point during your references, your reference checks. Your reference check is going to say like, oh no, like she didn't do that, like that was not part of her role. Or it's going to show up when you show up for the job and you have no idea what you're doing. So, you know, anything that you put on your resume or your cover letter is fair game to be asked about. Like I remember years ago I went in for a job interview and the person that was interviewing me started to speak Portuguese to me because in my resume I put down that I was fluent in Portuguese. And like luckily I am fluent, so I was able to converse with them, but like I know that's something that people do, right? That they, you know, they're like, okay, well, this person says they're fluent. Are they really fluent? You know? So just always, just always be honest and just proofread, proofread, proofread. That's the best advice I think I can give anyone.
You know, I think in terms of when people want to fudge a little bit, I think there's this fear. Like, I don't have a lot of experience. I want to get this job because I know I can do it. So it's like, what do you do when you don't have a lot of experience, but these jobs want the experience? And maybe you're just coming out of college, maybe you're leaving the military, whatever it might be. What are some things you can do?
Yeah, and I totally understand that. You know, I think if you're applying for an entry level position, I don't think the lack of experience should be a deal breaker, right? And I know, like at WHEDco, when we post for an entry level position, we know that we're not going to get someone who's going to be able to jump in on day one and do everything 100%, right? So you almost have to use substitutes, right, for that job experience. So, for example, if someone's in school, okay, well, are they involved in sports? Are they in clubs? Do they maybe have like a perfect attendance award, right? Like these are things that you might think are silly that are not necessarily job related. But to me, as an employer, when I see those things, I see, okay, this is someone who has time management skills because they're going to school and, you know, they're also doing X, Y, and Z. Um, Someone with good attendance, you're dependable, you're reliable, you have good follow through. I mean, these are all the skills that I think are really critical because everything else, like, I can train you on that. But if you don't have these core values already, if this is not already in you, I can't teach you responsibility. I can't teach you to have good follow through, right? That's not something that I feel is not really easy to help someone coming in. The other thing is like, you know, something that, you know, you and I, Lisa Marie, have talked about is doing some volunteer work, right? Doing field-based volunteer work and finding out like, you know, what am I interested in? What are the industries that I'm interested in? And maybe seeing if you can find a volunteer opportunity because that's something for your resume. You're building connections, which is, you know, building that network. But it's also you're improving your skills, which I think is excellent, right? The other thing is, I I wouldn't discount life experiences, right? And I know that people maybe feel discouraged because some employers don't value it. There are a lot of employers, you know, WHEDco being one of them, that like your life experience, that's valuable, that's critical, that is stuff that you can take with you and bring it, you know, to any job. So for example, maybe you babysat, right? Like you weren't paid for it, you know, you weren't on a payroll, but it's something you did. Okay, well, I want to know about that because maybe I'm considering you for a position in our youth department, right? Or maybe you worked at a family business, you helped out at a family business and you've been doing it since you were 10 years old. Like, I want to know about that. That to me has value. And you know, and maybe it's not necessarily you know, formal job experience. Maybe it's not necessarily in your resume, but it could be in your cover letter.
Yeah, that's something that in my past, I didn't have a lot of paid work experience, but I've done a lot of volunteer work and work with my family. And so I tried to think of how can I transfer this skill? How can I show that, say, for example, babysitting can show time management. I had a project manage. I needed to work on, say, a calendar and know when to pick up kids and do all these different things. And I think there's a way to like massage and like write things in a way that tells a story that maybe you didn't do something exactly that they had in the job application, but you did something similar that can transfer. So yeah, I think that's important. Again, thank you everyone who joined this conversation. If you're just joining now with Vera Amaral from WHEDco, and we're just talking about different tips and tips of the trade for when you're applying for jobs. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Vera is in the human resources department, so she looks at resumes and cover letters all the time. So it's a great chance to ask her some questions. So I think something that a lot of people, you know, they focus on the resume, but the cover letter, a lot of jobs ask for cover letters. So what are you looking for when you're reading a cover letter?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it's similar to the resume, right? It should be neat, it should be concise, it should be easy to read, typos, no grammaticals. But I think if you're applying for a job where the employer, you know, we always ask for a cover letter, and a lot of times people will apply and they won't include the cover letter. And that's really disappointing because, you know, to me, it says something about that maybe you're not able to follow directions. Um, well, a loss of an opportunity, because I think a cover letter is it's a great way to communicate with the hiring manager about your qualifications, about your interest in the position. And I don't think people realize how powerful a cover letter could be, right? So a good tailored cover letter should not be just a recap of your resume, right? You don't need to run me through your resume. I know what your resume says. I can read it. But if you're really creating a tailored cover letter, you want to go again back to that job description, back to your resume, and really use again the keywords and tying them into your real life experience, right? So like, for example, we'll have a job posting where I'll say, you know, ability to multitask is required. And we'll get a cover letter that says, I am really good at multitasking, period. And that's just, you know, that's not helpful, right? I mean, what would be helpful is, you know, let's say maybe you worked at a busy dental practice or something, and you can say, you know, I have this great ability to multitask. I've been working at this dental practice, as you can see from my resume. You know, we see 80 patients a day, and I am responsible for X, Y, and Z. When I look at that, that to me says, yes, this person can multitask, right? Just a simple, I can multitask, that's not helpful, right? And I think, especially if you feel like you are someone who doesn't have traditional work experience, this is really your opportunity to shine, right? Like Lisa, like the example you were saying, like being a babysitter, you know, being able to multitask and being organized, the calendar, that is your opportunity to like really get in there and show an employer that you are capable and that you're qualified for this position, right? You know, it's also nice to know like why you're interested in the position. You know, why would you, you know, when someone applies, like I want to know, why are you interested on WHEDco? Are we just one of 1,000 people that you're applying for and you don't know anything about us? You haven't looked at our website, you don't know what our mission is? Or are you someone who really, you know, has a connection to what we want to do and what we want to accomplish?
Yeah, that's so important because, like, I like how you're saying that you should be looking at your resume, the job description, and coming into the cover letter, and also just being mindful of who you're applying to. Why did you want to apply to this job? What about it is is connecting you. So we're drawing to an end, but there is another question I wanted to ask you that has come up with some of the students that come at BCC about, you know, they value diversity and inclusion. They might have need disability accommodations. And so if these are values that you have and things that are important to you, how do you find out if an employer values that as well?
Yeah, that's a tough question, right? I would say like off the bat, like check your network. Like, do you have a friend of a friend or a cousin of a neighbor who works there, and you can sort of get the inside scoop, right? That's going to be like the most accurate um, inside information of a company's values and what it is really like to work there. I know that's, 99% of the time that's not going to be an option, right? So if you're in that category and you don't have like an insider, I would look at the company's website, look at their LinkedIn page, look at their social media accounts. Like, what are they posting? Like, who is represented? Who are in leadership roles, right? Read their bios, right? I mean, is it just a bunch of white men in leadership positions? I think that's going to tell you something, right? Um, and look at their career pages. What is their mission? What are their stated values? What is their EEO statement? I think all of that sort of can try to give you a little bit of a picture of what really is going on in that company. The other thing, Google. Employers Google you should Google them. Maybe there's something on the news that a company did, good or bad, that speaks to their commitment to DEI and diversity and being inclusive of all people. You know, the best opportunity that you're going to get as an applicant to really understand the values and the culture of a company, though, is when you go, right? I think a lot of times during the job search process, the focus is so much on like the applicant. The applicant feels like they're being scrutinized. It's their resume, it's their cover letter. They're being called in for an interview. But as an applicant, like, you should also be doing your due diligence with an employer, right? So when you go in for an interview, look around, just pay attention. Like, how do people seem? How are they interacting? How are they speaking to each other? When you go in for your interview, who is interviewing you? Again, is it all a bunch of white men? That's going to tell you something about the organization. What kind of questions are they asking you? Are there implicit bias or assumptions being made in those questions, right? I once went to an interview, and I was being interviewed by two white men, and I was just out of law school. I just graduated, and they kept on harping about the work hours. And did I know that this was going to be a lot of work working at a law firm? And did I know that, it wouldn't just be 8-hour days? And did I know that the hours were, unpredictable? And of course, I knew that they were just asking me that because, they saw me as this young female and they were wondering, does she have kids? Is she going to have kids? Right? So you can tell a lot if you pay attention to the questions and what kind of questions and what assumptions are people making when they're asking you these questions, right? And again, just really pay attention to your interactions with folks when you're going in for the interview. Listen to your gut. Right, I think that a lot of times when we're going in, we see these red flags, and maybe you just really love the company and you really want the job so much, and you're ignoring them. And I know that sometimes we're not in a position where we can be picky about where we work, right? Like, maybe your financial situation is such that I have to take whatever job I get. I got to take it. I can't be picky. But I hope that if you are in a role, if you are in a position where you can be selective, that you are selective, and that you do your research, that because it's about finding a good match. And I would hate for someone to go through the time-consuming, stressful process of looking for a job, to find a job, to realize that it's not the right fit, that it's not the right environment or culture, or it's a company that doesn't have the values that you share, that you want, that you're looking for.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's great insight and feedback. We're closing up, and if there's anyone who has a question, please drop it in the chat. Um, and Vera, is there anything else you would like to share before we move on towards the end of the programming?
I would just say that, please take care of yourself. If you are in a job search, I know that it's incredibly frustrating and stressful, and you layer on top of that we're in a pandemic, and unfortunately so many people have lost their jobs, and a lot of employers have a hiring freeze, so you have a ton of applicants applying for the same job, and I know that I've been there. It feels very personal when you are applying and you're not getting a response, and you go to an interview and you don't get the offer. But something that I've learned, being on the employer side, is that as an applicant, you have such imperfect information. There's so much pieces to the puzzle that you don't have access to, right? You don't know if there's an internal candidate. You don't know the qualifications of the other applicants that are applying. You don't know if there's an employee referral. So I say all this, that it's okay to be sad, but just remember that although it feels very personal, it's not. And please do whatever it is to take care of yourself, to stay balanced, to de-stress, whether that's yoga or running or hanging out with your kids, whatever it is, because for some people, and I hope this is with you, you apply and you get a job right away, and it's like like this quick thing, right? And for other people, it takes a while, and it's not that there's anything wrong with you. You just you're trying to find that match, and at the end of the day, you need that one job offer, right? You need that one job offer from the match. So marathon mindset, right? Like just keep it on. Try to stay positive, and look out for resources. I mean, the fact that you're attending this Instagram live session is excellent, and I think we'll be putting up some contact information. So if there's ever anything that I can do to help, please let us know.
Thank you so much. This has been great. You gave great insight and advice. And I see in the chat people agree. Someone said wonderful discussion. Another one said thank you so much, Vera. Super helpful. So we really appreciate you. So JARC will be continuing to do similar events like this on IG Live, maybe hopefully in person soon. So if you would like to find out more and stay in touch, please follow us at JARCBX on Instagram. That's also, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook with that same handle. You can email us at jarcbx@gmail.com if you have questions. Additionally, we have a Google form if you want to stay up to date on future events and resources. Please fill out the form. It's bit.ly/JARCjobs, and we'll be dropping that in the chat as well. Additionally, the HOPE program, which is another partner in the JARC collaborative, has job training sessions every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. And you can find out more information about that on bit.ly/hope_info. And so I really appreciate everyone who joined today, and thank you for the questions. And Vera, thank you again for taking the time out of your day to provide these tips.
Thank you, Lisa Marie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.